Most 15-year-old boys are out and about, playing sports, socializing, discovering the world. That's if they weren't landed with the news that they have been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Since that diagnosis, he's written several books. The first is titled Finding the Can in Cancer. He's also a sought-after international speaker. Dr. Eddie Connor is a relatively young man, not yet 40. He agrees with me that he's now on the millennial cusp. Today, Dr. Eddie is cancer-free. What's his perspective? Is he healed or is the cancer in remission? You need to hear his story. I am Faye Ellington. This is Profile. Thanks for watching. It's such a pleasure having Dr. Eddie Connor here. I'm going to call him Dr. Eddie or Dr. Connor. But hello, how are you doing?
Wonderful. Such an honor to be on the show.
It is absolutely a pleasure to have you here.
Yes, indeed.
Let's deal with something I included in my introduction. Are you healed or is your cancer in remission?
I love the protagonism with that. I am totally healed, and this is my 20th year of being healed of stage 4 cancer, totally scot-free, and it's nothing but the grace of God. Yes.
You were 15 when you were diagnosed.
Yes.
But I'll get there in a while. I want to take you back to the early days. You were born in Detroit, but your parents brought you to Jamaica. Why did they come here?
You know, my parents came here, they're missionaries to the island as Christian ministers, fellowshipping with various churches and evangelizing and feeding the homeless, wanting to take care of the least, the lost, the last, the overlooked, the underserved, and underrepresented.
The lost and the last.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes, and so from that aspect, with West Indian roots, my father being West Indian, Jamaican, from Aruba
I knew
as
there
well.
was something. I
Yes.
knew there was something.
my accent betrays me.
Not quite, but there's just something about you. So you were here
Right.
4, 5, 6, 7. What are your memories of Jamaica then?
Oh my goodness! I mean, whether it's going to school at Covenant Christian Academy on Old Hope Road, whether it's playing football, whether it's
And we're talking about football, okay?
yeah.
Soccer, football,
Soccer.
Okay.
Right,
Just want
soccer.
to make
That
clarity.
aspect, that aspect. Whether it is just eating mangoes and just being out in the field and picking just any fruit from any tree that you want to. Just the beauty and the magnanimity of Jamaica. It is the most fondest memory of my life.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But when you were about 7, they returned to the United States of
Sure,
America.
sure.
Did they go directly to America or did they go to do missionary service elsewhere before going back to America?
Back to America, back to Detroit, and I had a Jamaican accent, patois.
You mean you did talk like
I
when
had a
we
little
talk here, so
Jamaican
no?
accent.
No, I'm sorry, you don't have it
I don't
right
have
now.
it anymore.
No,
So
it's gone.
I got teased profusely about it, and it ingratiated me back into the American dialect. But my parents went right back to Detroit and went back to school, and I had that British education that I was indoctrinated in here, and they wanted to double promote me in America because I was so far beyond with what I had learned here.
That's usually the case.
Yeah.
You're about a grade or 2 ahead.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and so.
Did your mother allow that?
No,
For them to double promote you?
She kept me in the grade, but they would give me work that would challenge me a little bit more. So around that time, that 11, 12-year gap, my parents went through a divorce. So being raised by a single-parent mother who was an educator, 30-year educator, she's PhD, Dr. Janice Connor, raising my brother and I. And the question becomes to me, especially, how do you play a role when you weren't given a script? How do you become a man if you don't see one, much less interact with one? And so I was going through a personal battle of my own with my identity, with who I am. And the man who I modeled and emulated was gone.
How long did it take you to get over that hurdle with your dad gone, negotiating all these emotional obstacles? How long did it take you to get across?
Took me years. I would say probably till my senior year in college.
All right,
I
let's
had
go
to
back.
face that, yeah.
So you're doing well, you're healthy, everything is fine. At 15, something goes wrong in your life.
It does.
What happened?
You know, I'm over my friend's house watching a football game. I can't breathe by halftime. If you rewind the time about 2 weeks prior to that, I'm having chest pains, and oftentimes boys and men were not given the space and place to be vulnerable. Oftentimes masculinity and vulnerability cannot coexist in the same space. It's seen as femininity.
That's true.
And I was crying internally. My mother said, something's going on with you. And, you know, I'm like, no, I'm good, you know. But she could see through something is not right. And can't breathe by halftime. I'm over at my friend's house. We're on Christmas vacation. And his mother takes me to the hospital. My mother meets me there. The doctors do a CT scan of the chest. They see they need to take me to surgery immediately. They cut me open. They see my cells in my body are growing so fast they could see them growing with the naked eye.
What are we talking about? Cancer in your chest cavity?
Yes. The doctor says, gives me a diagnosis. I'm thinking it's a punctured lung, much less pneumonia. I don't know what it is. He says, you have NHL. I thought it stood for National Hockey League. He said, no, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm like, Doc, my first language is Ebonics. I'm still trying to learn English. What do you mean? He says, you have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4.
Stage 4?
Yes. Stage 4 cancer.
As a 15-year-old?
15-year-old kid.
How did you react?
Rocks the core of your being. You're automatically, in many cases, thinking about the eulogy that's going to be written for you, the epitaph that's on your tombstone. It's a death sentence. And one thing that really rocked the core of my mentality, the doctor says to me, don't ask why, immediately after the diagnosis. I'm like, you're my physician, you're not my psychologist. For the next 18 months, close to 2 years, chemo, radiation. You see these waves today, at least I'm trying to get them back. Lost my hair, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, my will to live. My own biological father never even visited me one day in the hospital. So the people who I thought were praying for me, in many cases, they were literally praying on me, sitting on the sideline expecting my demise. That's right.
Rather than P-R-A-Y.
That's right.
But your mommy was there, your mother was there.
That's right. I love the church song that says, my mama prayed for me, had me on her mind, took the time to pray for me. I'm so glad that she did. Without the prayers of a mother who told me, you got to take off the pity party hat, Psalm 118:17, and God's word says, you shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. She told me that everybody in life gets knocked down, but a knockdown is not a knockout unless you stay down.
It's hard for a 15-year-old going
it's hard.
16 and a half, 17 to really negotiate all of that thing.
It is.
But you did.
Without a doubt. I had to. Because the pain really of me going through cancer wasn't so much the needles being driven into my veins, wasn't so much the chemo and the radiation and the nausea that came with it, and the mental discombobulation, but in many cases it was a battle of the mind and the psychological fight that I had to have.
What was the darkest spot?
The darkest part was me standing in the mirror after getting bouts of radiation and chemotherapy, and I screamed and cried like I've never done it before. I'm looking in my reflection in the mirror. My mother rushes in and she sees clumps of hair in my hands as I just put my hands through my hair. And that was one of my darkest moments, to see my body disintegrating before my own eyes.
I guess it's Dr. Eddie Connor talking about a really difficult time in his life. He was 15 when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. When we come back, we'll hear how he moved on with life and all the wonderful things he's been doing for himself and others. This is Profile. Thank you for watching.